The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
The debate over a movie studio. I'm live in Carson City, where the special session takes on that issue, toughening up some criminal sentences and cybersecurity. Representing Clark County, we talk with candidates running for a hotly contested Clark County Commission seat. Plus, a deadline for that water deal on the Colorado River, it has passed. We'll tell you what's next for states in the basin.
You're watching Politics Now with John Langler on 8 News Now.
And thank you for joining us here from Carson City. I'm John Langler for a special edition of Politics Now. This is a Friday here. The special session started on Thursday, and they are still at work, the lawmakers inside the legislative building as we speak. So it's a very busy agenda. It's an unusually big agenda for this special session. As always, the agenda set by Governor Joe Lombardo. Now it's just a matter of what can be accomplished in a pretty tight time frame. And again, as I mentioned, that work is going on right now. But there were some fireworks from the start. Back on Thursday, as things got going in the Assembly, it was assigning bills to committees, and there was a hang-up. Reno Democrat Selena LaRue Hatch tried to get the film tax credit expansion bill tossed out. She used a legislative rule to force a vote. Her effort to kill it failed, but the Assembly at that time was deadlocked at 21. So the bill went forward, but it's on shaky ground.
I was just very concerned that this is not a measure that should be considered in a special session. That is for emergencies. The film bill, which barely passed the Assembly by 1 vote last time and didn't make it through the Senate, doesn't seem like an emergency to me.
Well, I view it as a jobs bill, right? I mean, the economy is very soft right now. Over 1 million people were laid off in the country. Visitation to Las Vegas is down. That has real impacts on our state. What the film tax credit bill would do is create tons of construction jobs in the next few years and then bring a new industry here.
Aside from those fireworks, lawmakers are also discussing cybersecurity improvements after that cyber attack on the state government, possibly creating a Nevada version of SNAP so that it can provide food stamps if the federal government shuts down once again. Also on tap, there's the governor's crime bill, including longer sentences for drunk drivers who kill someone. Assembly Bill 4 would increase the 2 to 20-year sentence to a maximum of 25 years. If the defendant has 1 or 2 prior offenses, the sentence could be between 5 and 25 years if this is approved. That bill, by the way, to create the state SNAP program also was heard quite quickly at the legislative special session. Seems to have early bipartisan support right now. It was being worked on by Governor Joe Lombardo and his office, as well as Democratic State Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro, where she is pitching the bill. Here she is.
Senate Bill 3 was brought forward because Nevada must be prepared. We must be prepared for the next crisis long before it arrives. The recent federal government shutdown and the jeopardization of SNAP and WIC benefits for Nevada families made one thing very painfully clear, is that when federal systems fail, it is our most vulnerable residents who pay that price. As a state, we cannot allow that to happen again. We just can't. When Nevadans lost access to SNAP during the shutdown, families across the state were left choosing between groceries, rent, and basic necessities. Food banks were strained, and thankfully the legislature and the governor worked together to address these shortfalls. But we should never have to scramble in that position again.
We also caught up with Democratic Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager as the session was just getting started. Here's some of what he said.
There's a lot on the agenda. Special sessions aren't usually, I feel like, have that much of an agenda on it. Why is there so much to do?
Yeah, so at the end of last session, I think there were a number of priorities, pieces of legislation we were working on that just didn't get passed because we ran out of time. So a lot of what you see on the agenda is based on that. Things that we'd all agreed on in this building, but for reasons beyond our control just didn't make it. And then some of what's going on with the federal government has dictated that we be here. For instance, what's going on with SNAP. I mean, the government's opening now, but we really want to have a program in place where if something happens in the future with a government shutdown, we're able to actually give benefits to Nevadans.
What can Nevada do? SNAP's federal. That was kind of the holdup leading into this. So what hypothetically could the state government do if there's another government shutdown?
So we're going to try to stand up a state assistance program, so kind of consider it to be SNAP, but on a state level instead of a federal level. And that would allow us to then use the federal data to be able to provide benefits to Nevadans. And so that will originate in the Senate, but we'll try to get that right so that if we're in this situation again, we don't have to rely solely on the federal government.
You had suggested before this of maybe declaring a fiscal emergency. Is that another tactic? I know it's not necessarily needed now, but is that another tactic that you can use, or would this kind of idea mitigate that?
We might still need to declare a fiscal emergency. I mean, it really just depends on what the cost would be, right? But if we stand up a program and we have that available in the interim, if we need additional funding for that, a fiscal emergency could be declared, and then we could pull money out of the rainy day fund. So having this program gives us a lot of options in the future, and hopefully options that don't require us to come back to a special session.
Two more questions. First and foremost, the film tax credit bill. Obviously, it's back again. You supported, I believe, last time we spoke. Does that bill, is that still an easy, something that's sellable now, given what's going on in the economy, given the circumstances with the federal government? Is it hard to sell tax credits when all these programs still need help?
Well, I view it as a jobs bill, right? I mean, the economy is very soft right now. Over 1 million people were laid off in the country. Visitation to Las Vegas is down. That has real impacts on our state. What the film tax credit bill would do is create tons of construction jobs in the next few years and then bring a new industry here. So, it'll be up to each member to decide how to vote on that. This is an issue that really divides folks, but they have to look within themselves and decide whether it's worth it. I think just in terms of a job creation bill, this is something we can't afford not to do at the moment.
Finally, some critics of some of the measures that are being discussed here say this special session is supposed to be for an emergency, and they don't necessarily see a lot of emergencies. Is this really a special session, or is it just an extension of the regular session?
So special sessions are really interesting because the governor is the one who sets the agenda. So really the governor decides what is worthy to be put on that agenda. So that's really a question for the governor. As the legislature, I think our job is to come in and decide, are these good policies? Do we want to do them? But I think you ask a question that makes me think, would we be better served as a state if we had a legislative session every year? Because I think part of the reason we're in a special session is we don't go back into a regular session until February of 2027, and that's a long way to wait to get some of these done. So I hope that someday our voters will allow us to have annual sessions so we won't be in this situation. This is now my 6th special session, and I have 5 regular sessions. So I served more special sessions than regular sessions since I've been here.
Should point out that the discussion there with Speaker Yeager was just before the drama over the film tax credit bill as the Assembly was getting started, as he was talking about that measure. We also spoke with Republican State Senator Jeff Stone about his thoughts on the special session.
Do you think this is an emergency session?
Well, if you read our Constitution, it says extraordinary situation. And so the governor has seen some extraordinary issues that necessitated him calling a special session. We have some emergency expenditures. Obviously, we're very concerned about the SNAP program. We're very happy that the federal government has gotten back into the business of providing assistance for those that need it. We have an economy that's struggling right now. And the governor sees this Hollywood bill as a way to possibly diversify our economy coming into the summer months, which are not looking to be a real good one for the state of Nevada.
Do you see it as that?
I see diversification of our workforce as something that we should have been paying more attention to in the past, and I'm happy that we're beginning to start taking a serious look at it now.
But you're not ready to say you're in favor of or against this idea of film tax credits expanding?
I'm open-minded to it. I want to see what the bill is doing. I want to see the protections for the citizens of the state of Nevada. I want to see the jobs that are going to be created.
Any other priorities that you want to see addressed? Obviously, we've seen the bills that have been put forward beside in the bill themselves. What do you want to try and tackle?
Obviously, we have some public safety issues going on. We have some issues going on in school zones where kids are getting hit by cars. And so we're going to address some of these public safety issues and some of the healthcare issues, trying to expand healthcare access for the citizens of the state of Nevada.
So back to that sort of drama at the beginning of the Assembly as they were gaveling in. We did speak with Assemblymember Selena LaRue Hatch, the one who instigated that vote on the floor. We talked about her concerns over the film tax credit bill and public comment at the special session.
So it tied. That means our motion failed, but it also means the bill would fail. And so I'm going to continue talking to my colleagues. I'm going to continue representing my constituents who don't believe in this bill. And I'm going to continue asking questions.
You also brought up the issue of telephonic participation by the public, referencing, of course, the Assembly member who's not here right now. There must have been some discussion before you guys started today about your concerns. This can't have come out of nowhere. How long have you been concerned about the process of this special session?
So we have not been filled in all that much prior to the special session. It's one of my biggest concerns is the lack of transparency around this session. I want to make sure that the public are able to participate. And so that's why I made that comment is I believe the public need to be part of these hearings, and I think they need to be able to call in and voice their support or opposition for all of these measures. Lawmakers hope to have everything wrapped up by Monday, although I did speak with the Senate Minority Leader, Robin Titus, the Republican from up north here. She says she's leaving on Sunday no matter what. She can still participate remotely, of course. We'll have a complete recap of the legislative special session coming up for you next week right here on Politics Now, and of course our newscasts and 8newsnow.com. Meanwhile, the federal government is back open. That has taken place after a Nevada senator, among others, flipped her vote in Washington, D.C. Democrats Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto joined 6 other Democrats to vote for that spending measure in Washington, D.C. to end the shutdown. Now, Senator Cortez Masto had consistently voted to keep the government open, voting with Republicans, but it was Senator Rosen who was one that switched. The deal includes a promise that there will be a vote on the Affordable Care Act tax credits, but it won't be for some time, though. Washington, D.C. correspondent Trevor Shirley has the breakdown.
It's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again.
The final House vote came down mostly along party lines, with 6 Democrats joining nearly all Republicans to pass the legislation.
I want to say that all this was utterly pointless and foolish. This outcome was totally foreseeable.
Many Democrats, though, remain unhappy that enough of their colleagues agreed to vote with Republicans, getting almost nothing in exchange.
This fight is not over. We're just getting started.
Shuttered agencies are now back open, and flight-related delays and cutbacks will likely ease over the coming days. Federal employees will likely soon receive back pay, although when and who will get that pay remains unclear. And the Agriculture Department says SNAP benefits, a flashpoint over the past few weeks, will likely be available within 24 hours. Now the House is also set to vote on its bill to release the Epstein files, which Speaker Mike Johnson says will happen next week.
He drugged this out. It's caused nothing but political pain when he could have done the right thing politically, but also morally by bringing this to the floor.
In the meantime, last night's funding bill only funds the government through January 30th, meaning another shutdown could happen February 1st if Congress can't work out a long-term spending deal.
In the House, all 3 Nevada Democrats split with the Nevada senators and voted against the deal to reopen the federal government. They were concerned that there was no guarantee the Obamacare tax subsidies I mentioned before would actually be extended, that it would just get a vote. Meanwhile, a deadline for states along the Colorado River to reach a new agreement on water rights, it's come and gone, and no deal has been reached. The Department of Interior gave the 7 states until earlier this week to at least reach the framework of an agreement. And if not, the Department of Interior said it would step in. They didn't announce a deal, though, but the states and the federal agencies put out a joint statement saying they're committed to working together. The sticking point in the negotiations is how much of the burden the upper basin states, like Colorado, for example, how much they should take on. Lower basin states like Nevada and Arizona want them to also take cuts when the river drops, not just here in Nevada, for example. Coming up next here on Politics Now, we'll talk with a few of the candidates who are running for a hotly contested county commission race, District F in the southwest part of the valley. We'll talk with both of them. Also, Governor Joe Lombardo picks up a key endorsement. We'll explain that. Politics Now is back after this.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Welcome back here as you join us for a special edition of Politics Now from Carson City in the state capital. A race for Clark County Commissioner has at least 5 candidates already. It's the District F seat that's basically the southwest part of the valley. This week I sat down with a couple of those candidates, and we'll start with Becky Harris, who's running as a nonpartisan. Let's start off with why trying to have this seat?
Well, I have always been a public servant at heart. When we very first moved here, we moved into a very quickly developing area, and the neighborhood needed some representation. So I quickly became known as a community advocate to work with developers and making sure that our children had safe walkways to school and that we were being intelligent and thoughtful around the way that retail development would come into the neighborhood. And from there, I ran for the Assembly, and then I ran for the Senate, and was eventually appointed to chair the Nevada Gaming Commission, or Control Board. Now you've got me confused.
We both, it happens. I get it mixed up all the time. You've always wanted to be in public service, as you mentioned here. You talk about the Southwest Valley, and there's been so much growth. The Southwest Valley is basically the district. What do you see as the balance that needs to take place on a county level between open space, the explosion of homes that are being built in that area? How do you try and thread that needle?
So I think you've got to take a 360 view of the district, right? We have everything from parts of Summerlin all the way through parts of Jean. We have Sloan, parts of Prim, Good Springs, Mountain Springs, Blue Diamond. So we have this great diverse mix of more urban areas as well as rural areas. Take you back to 2008 for a minute, where we were hardest hit with the housing crisis, and it seemed like all construction stopped on a dime. And we are still behind on basic infrastructure in certain areas of the district where roads need to go in. We finally have caught up, I think, with schools, but drainage, sewage, just those basic amenities that community members have come to expect from government services still are a little bit delayed, and we need to get caught up there. So
just getting back to the idea of smart development, smart growth in the district, what sort of guidelines do you think developers should follow? What about the needs for affordable housing? It seems like it's one thing to just say we need a bunch of houses, let's build a bunch of houses, but there needs to be some framework beyond just the zoning laws and planning laws, just an idea of what you think might be the best way to pursue these projects.
So I think being very intentional and collaborative with the home builders is really critical, making sure that the county budget dollars are being set aside so that we can keep pace with those neighborhoods, making sure that we are appropriately staffing police and fire, making sure that we are not disadvantaged because of the growth, but rather the growth is helping to enhance the community, and making sure that we have an effective plan in place, and where necessary, mitigation plans come into play so that we can have a good quality of life.
I have to point out you're running as an independent, obviously. You have been a Republican in public service before. Why choose to run as an independent?
Because I think our community needs somebody that's going to stand up and represent them. From my days as a senator, I became known as somebody who is accessible. I always take constituent phone calls and work with them to find the right solutions for the problems that they're facing in their day-to-day, so that they can go about focusing on the things that are important, getting to work, taking care of their family. And I just felt like the dual party system with the gridlock and how it's been bogged down isn't appropriately serving the interests of the community.
Next on a special edition of Politics Now from Carson City, we'll speak with Republican Assemblywoman Heidi Kasama, who's also running for that same county commission seat. That's coming up.
You're watching Politics Now.
Back here from Carson City, back to that county commission seat, District F. Heidi Kasama, the Republican Assemblywoman, also running for that post. Here's our conversation. First and foremost, why run for county commission?
Well, I'm super excited, but first, it's been such an honor to serve the state of Nevada. I've been a 3-term elected assemblywoman. Been so proud to serve Assembly District 2 in the Summerlin area. And the opportunity has come up now for the Clark County Commission, and it's right in my community. You're right there. You're closer to your constituents. I mean, you're always serving them, but it's having I think a closer to home influence on our economic development, our businesses, supporting. I always say we need thoughtful development because we know we're going to have development. How do we do that thoughtfully? How do we consider the water issues? It's right what I've been dealing with. I'm in real estate as well, so part of the development is part of what we deal there. So, and I know so many people in the community. I've lived here for 23 years. I've been very active in the community, and so just excited to be working with all the local people again.
You know, you mentioned having development be smart. I feel like you could ask a million different people that have a million different ideas of what smart development is, things they don't want in their backyard, things they do want in their backyard. What does smart development in District F look like to you?
Well, there's no one size fits all for smart development. You have to look at each project and what's going on. But you know, we will have development, and there's always the not in my backyard. And so you have to respect the development that's already been there. You have to respect the communities that have always been there. But then you also have to realize we are going to have development. You know, the projection is, you know, another 1 million people coming here. And Southern Nevada Water Authority says we can probably handle about another 1 million. But how do we start taking that into account now with our water? Because that doesn't mean we can grow another 3 million. If it's 1 million that we can handle, how do we start now to consider the allocation for that? And I just would really enjoy to be part of that process. Those are the things I really like. So how do we start quantifying that and taking that into account as we develop?
The predecessor, Justin Jones in District F, is not running for re-election, as you know, the Democrat. And it's hard to, well, let me ask you this. What would you change from his time? Obviously, again, I know you're not running against him, but are there some things you'd like to bring to District F that you feel like have not been presented or addressed in the last couple of terms?
I think, well, one thing I'm super excited about is the Chinatown redevelopment. I think that is very excited. I'd like to really focus on that. I know he's done work on that. I've certainly talked to a lot of the leaders there. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to really make it a poster child for the United States and what you can do for redeveloping certain areas. So that is an area that I'm focused on and very excited about. And again, it's working with developers. It's understanding that many of the people have a private property rights. They have a right to develop. How can we work with that and do that thoughtfully?
We'll recap the special session from Carson City next week. Until then, take care.